and we should be live. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Gator Motorsports' first live stream of the season. I will be your host for today. My name is Randy. I am working on the Aerodynamics system and as this year's president. Joining me today are going to be your hosts and recruitment coordinators, Mitchell and Michael. Mitchell works on the Ergonomics team, and Michael is this year's shielding lead. So say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, cool. So let's get on with it. So what you can expect from us today, we're gonna go over the team, do things like quickly talk about our history, our philosophy, our team views, and talk about this year's car, the F20. After that, we'll move into system overviews, which are basically going to be like the system highlights we've been posting for the past few weeks. But they'll go a little bit into more detail, hopefully enough detail that our new members that are interested in a few different systems might find a system they're more interested in. And everybody can get a little bit more information from these systems. After we do all those, we'll then go into our Q&A session. The first half of it will be from their Google form that we sent out. We'll be answering those questions first, and then we'll stay on the air for about 10 more minutes and take any live questions that you guys might have. So with that being said, I will now pass it on to Mitchell and Michael to present the presentation. So hope you guys enjoy. Starting with the team overview.
Yeah, so we as Gator Motorsports are a team of UF students who come together to build a technically advanced race car and learn good engineering practices along the way. Looks really good on resumes, and you get a lot of great experience from us. So the team has produced race cars since 1991, with the team's 30th car being built this year. So that's pretty cool. The team has a historically high place in the competition with many top 10 finishes and even a second place finish in 2015. Here's some cool pictures of cars over the years. So our specs for F20, our engine is from a 2007 Honda CBR 600RR motorcycle. It produces 72 horsepower at 11,400 RPM and 54 Newton meters of torque at 8,700 RPM. Our 0 to 60 time is about 3 seconds, maybe a little lower, but our top speed is about 80 miles per hour, and we can get up to 2.2 lateral Gs of acceleration. Our aero package generates 100 pounds of downforce at 35 miles an hour, and our DRS drag reduction system is able to reduce drag up to 40% when activated. We have Hoosier 10-inch, 10-inch wheels with Hoosier tires, and our car weighs about 430 pounds without a driver.
Thank you, Mitchell. Now we'll pass it over to Michael to introduce us to the system overviews. Before we do that, I would just like to quickly go over the systems. So this year we're doing 10 systems with Daniel as this year's captain and Chris as our chief engineer. So we'll be going over the 10 systems with aero, brakes, suspension, chassis, electrical, ergonomics, intake and exhaust, cooling and oiling, drivetrain, and fueling. So take it away, Michael. Okay, Michael might be having some technical difficulties. So Mitchell, are you still on?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So Aerodynamics is in charge of designing and manufacturing the aero package to control external airflow around the car. They do the front and rear wings, the under tray, and DRS that was mentioned earlier. We generate downforce to improve cornering capabilities, and that results in faster lap times. Aero uses CFD software to model airflow and guide the package design. And for manufacturing, they use composite materials like carbon fiber, Kevlar, and other sorts of stuff to manufacture strong and lightweight aero devices.
Yeah, and just in case anybody's curious, we use the Star CCM as our CFD program of choice for Aerodynamics.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm back.
Oh, hey, Michael. All right, you can take it away.
All right. So the brake system designs and manufactures the brake package, and they utilize off-the-shelf components such as the brake pads to allow this to happen. They also manufacture the rotors and the brake lines. They use Bosch ABS unit used to optimize the brake performance across driver skill levels. This is important when you have multiple different people driving the car for certain events or testing or really wherever we get the chance to drive. They generate ANSYS sims from on-track data to go ahead and validate the rotor design. You can see that as the top left picture. They CNC manufacture the brake rotors and other components, and you can see a picture of that in the bottom right. Our next system is chassis, and they design, manufacture the frame. Another thing that chassis does, they attach all the mounting points for the car. This is very important considering that all the systems have to attach to the frame. They use FEA to model the frame's torsional stiffness and validate that through physical testing. You can see a picture of that in the top, or just top. Currently, we have a steel space frame. However, there are plans of a monocoque in the future. We're working on that. Hopefully, we can see that soon. Our next system is cooling and oiling. They design, manufacture components needed to maintain safe engine temperature and lubrication. They use CFD to model the airflow into the radiator as well as oil slosh inside the reservoir. And they work with composite materials to create the radiator shroud and design the oil pan and oil reservoir to build the dry sump oiling system. With cooling and oiling, you also see a decent bit of CNC manufacturing. All right, Mitchell, you want to take it away with Drivetrain?
Yeah, for sure. Drivetrain is in charge of designing and manufacturing the drivetrain package to transfer torque from the engine to the wheels. They do the gearbox, chain and sprocket, differential, axles, and tripod joints. They select a final drive ratio to keep the engine in its most ideal RPM range to reduce lap times. And they use FEA and topology optimization software to minimize component wear. So that's the picture in the bottom right. That's an FEA sim. So they use high-strength aluminum and steel alloys to manufacture components which can withstand the extreme loads in the drivetrain system. Electrical and Controls is in charge of designing and manufacturing the electrical harness to connect onboard computers, the data logger, and sensors, which are CAN and analog. They use Rapid Harness to mock up harness layouts and manage designs. They use custom PCBs and Motec hardware to control vehicle controls, with stuff like drive-by-wire, launch control, traction control, and the paddle shifter system. Now, Ergonomics, this is the system that I work on. We design and manufacture all systems that the driver physically interacts with to enhance driver performance. We do stuff like pedal tray, steering column, steering wheel, seat back, clutch engagement system, and driver padding. We use multiple FEA programs to analyze internal stresses and components and design for structural integrity and safety, which is, there's a couple of screenshots of FEA on the brake pedal and the steering column on the bottom there. And we work with various metals and composites depending on the application. So like the seat back is carbon fiber, and steering wheel is carbon fiber for the most part. And then brake pedal and a lot of other stuff is metals. So, all right, Michael, you want to go ahead and do fueling?
I'll see why not. So for fueling, we design, manufacture all components that supply the engine with fuel. So this includes the fuel tank, fuel rail, and fuel lines. So we use Motec software to tune the engine for peak performance. Important thing that we consider during this tuning process is the fuel consumption, and we want to make sure that we're as fuel efficient as possible while still being as powerful as possible. So during manufacturing, we tend to work with composites. We work a lot with sheet metal and we also CNC mill certain components of the fuel tank. So for our next system, we have intake and exhaust. So they design, manufacture components to manipulate airflow into and out of the engine in order to achieve optimal engine output. So they use CFD to model this airflow and to guide the design process. They work with composite materials when creating the intake plenum, as well as tube bending and welding when manufacturing the exhaust runners. So this year, actually, we here, if you want to go back for a second, I don't know if the picture's up there, but we use titanium for the exhaust this year. So that's pretty cool. So next slide. So our final system is suspension, and they're responsible for the analysis on tire performance, the kinematics, and vehicle dynamics as a whole. So they use FEA to minimize mass within chosen stiffness targets, and they manufacture these components in-house with CNC mills and lathes and use carbon fiber for the control arms. So yeah, that wraps up for our system overview.
All right. Oh, I'm back. So yeah, now we'll be taking it over to our Q&A session, where you guys have been submitting quite a few questions. We had 6 responses, so yeah, that's good for the first time around. So I'll go ahead and read off these questions, and we'll have our recruitment coordinators answer them for you. So first question, guys, comes from, don't know, they didn't put their name, but first question is, does Gator Motorsports do any sort of driver development for inexperienced drivers?
So I can take this one. So we do driver development. That program is actually being started by a guy named Alex, a great guy working on that. Typically, you'll see that that driver development happen for experienced members of the team. Usually, it goes to people who have really developed or work to develop the car or put in a whole lot of time in the development of the car.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, don't, like, if you're considering joining the team and you're interested in driving the race car, don't worry. You don't have to be. Driver development is mainly for competition drivers, but we do like to give the opportunity for the people who show a lot of dedication to the team and who work a lot on the car to be able to drive the car. I've actually driven the car once, and it was a lot of fun. But just know that all our drivers are engineers on the team, and so we don't have any dedicated drivers. But yes, we do driver development for the team. Next question: are there any requirements to join Gator Motorsports?
No, there are not any requirements to join. You can be any major, just have to have an interest in what we're doing, and you got to like to work, because we do a lot of work. But no, we take business majors and all sorts of engineering majors, and we have people, like, we've had electrical engineers do mechanical stuff on the car and the opposite as well. So no, there are no requirements to join.
Yeah, so to add on to what Mitchell was saying, sorry to interrupt, Randy, but when Mitchell says we take a lot of business students, something that wasn't mentioned in the slides is we actually have a business team as well. So if you would be interested in getting into that, you absolutely can. Same thing with the business team. No requirements to join. And another thing is I joined last year, and I knew absolutely nothing about engineering whatsoever. And you learn quick. That's a really important thing to know, is you learn very quick on this team, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and to further what Michael was saying, yeah, when I joined in, I didn't really know much about aerodynamics or anything like that. And in fact, when I joined the team, I actually came to the school to do biomedical engineering. But actually learning aerodynamics through this team, I decided to switch my major to aerodynamics. And, you know, after almost 3 years on the team, I've really enjoyed doing it. And I actually have an internship lined up for next summer. So it's a really good place to learn things that you might have not even considered in the past. So it's a good question. So this kind of ties into that question, but what is the time commitment for those participating?
I can go ahead and answer this one. It really does come down to you get out what you put in. So you can come to the shop maybe once a week, work, and you will have a good time. That I feel like that's a really important thing to remember when considering joining the team. It is a lot of fun and it's a great experience. But if you really want to get the most out of it, there is a pretty hefty time commitment. But like I said, it really depends on how much time you want to put in. It's absolutely up to you.
I know I personally, when I first joined, I would come in like once a week and not do much. But once people started giving me work, I realized that I was actually really enjoying what I was doing. So I started coming in a lot more and getting more projects and working my way up. And now I do spend a lot of time on this team, but it's definitely stuff that I enjoy doing. So.
Yeah, I'll say like when I first joined the team, it was during the summer, and I was taking some pretty easy classes, just my freshman year and stuff, so I wasn't doing much. So I know that pretty much whenever I finished my classes and did my homeworks and stuff like that, I pretty much just go to the shop whenever I had time, so I could spend like 4 hours a day just working on whatever I could. But obviously, it's not everybody had that time, and when the fall started, I did like reduce my hours just to be able to do schoolwork and do this, but does teach you good time management to be able to plan everything accordingly, being able to do school and the team at the same time. But yeah, it's definitely you can put in as many hours or as little hours as you want, and you'll get out the value that you put in. Yeah. So next question is a little bit more of a little technical question, but when testing the car on the track, how do you guys design the course for an autocross event or an autocross practice event, something like that?
Yeah, so when testing, we really try to mimic the conditions that we see at competition. That's really what it boils down to. We try to set up the cones the exact same way that, or maybe not the exact same way, but a very similar way that we would see at comp, just to try to get a similar experience so we can see where we're lacking.
Yeah, so I mean, for this question, I think to answer it, the best way to design a course for an autocross event would be to look at past autocross event course layouts and try to replicate that to the best of your ability. If you're doing something like in a parking lot, then that's great. You can mimic it like almost exactly. We tend to use like tracks that when we get sponsored, we use sponsored tracks. And so we basically, instead of mimicking the tracks 100%, we'll try to get the basics down, like slaloms and like the average cone count for those and the average turns and things like that, and try to, put the car through the paces of what situations it could see itself at an autocross event. And the same thing would go to like the other types of events too, like skid pad and endurance. Moving on. So here we have quite a bit more of a technical question, but what are some of the simulation softwares that your team uses for the exhaust system? And from where do you find the initial values / boundary conditions for them?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take this one as well. We use a Ricardo Wave for our intake and exhaust systems, as well as our fueling system, just so we can kind of get optimum fluid mechanics, or whatever you would want to call it. For boundary conditions, I would imagine that we get those through testing data. I'm not entirely sure, but I would imagine that it is testing data.
Yeah, so none of us are actually in the exhaust system or the intake system. We did try to reach out to our lead this year, but this question was submitted a little late and we couldn't get an exact response. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I know we have a delay on the stream, so there's a question on the chat asking, is prior automotive experience required, or is there training? There's training. Like we said in a previous question, you don't need to have any experience at all for the team. Like I said, like I joined as a biomedical major, and I had no idea about aerodynamics. So, yeah, there's no training. Oh, and also if you guys look at the chat, we have David Suma messaging, who was our last year's intake and exhaust lead. So for that last question we just answered, that'll get you the answer you were looking for. And the final question that we have from our list is same person. He said, I am working as an intake department member, and my team is facing a problem related to engine idling speeds. We use a GSRX 600 engine. So do you have any suggestions for how we could solve this issue? So pretty interesting question, guys.
I'm actually not sure how to answer this. I don't work with any powertrain components, so.
Yeah, I think Michael was looking into this one a little bit, but
was he?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research, and I'm not entirely sure how to help you out. I am sorry about that. I just couldn't really find an answer for you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry we're not able to properly answer this question. Partly due to the fact, again, we couldn't really reach out to as many people with this question being submitted late. And also we're not super familiar with that specific engine. Again, we use the Honda CBR engine, so it's not the engine that we use. And also a problem relating to engine idling speed is a little vague. There could be many issues that could result in that error you guys are seeing. So if you guys want, you can message us, just DM us on our Instagram or Facebook, and we'll try to get back to you with some suggestions. But I would say probably the best thing to do would be to look it up online or try to find the manual or any sort of documentation on that engine and see what possible solutions you could find. I know that I work on a car engine. I have my own project car, and I know the owner's manual or the shop manual has been very useful for trying to diagnose issues with starting and engine issues. So I would definitely suggest looking at some sort of shop manual for that engine. All right, so that's it for our pre-recorded questions. So now we'll spend the last, say 10 minutes just looking at the chat and answering any questions you might have. So I see one from Purple Gorilla 99 asking, are there tryouts for driving? So yeah, so what we do is we have a driver development program, like we mentioned a little while ago. And basically the way that system works is once you're on the team for a little bit and the new members are showing dedication, the team will pick out a few new members to put them through the driver development course. Basically, the way we do that is just we have a driving simulator where we have an empty chassis and just a TV in front of it, and we'll bring a few people over there to race on the virtual system that we have, and the people with the best times are the people that we will sort of pick to do further training for, and from there we'll do more simulation training, and then we'll pass them into actual driver training and getting them on the car, on the road, or on the track, and letting them play around with the car and drive it. But are there tryouts for driving? Yes. But again, if you're worried that you won't ever be able to drive the car if you're not a driver, that's not true. Again, I've been able to drive the car after a test session that we had extra time with. So don't be afraid that if you're not a driver, you won't be able to drive it. As long as you're a dedicated member and you have put in a lot of work, you'll probably be able to get to drive the car at some point. Let's see. Zero Cavity ask a question online saying, what ways do you guys train underclassmen, giving them tasks to do at the machine shop or mini class or something like that? Yeah, so
here I can take this one, Randy.
Okay, yeah, I'll add on to what you say.
Yeah, so when it comes to training underclassmen, there isn't really a set way that we do it. A lot of the knowledge really does come from experience on the team. But another thing that we have done in the past and that we're looking forward to doing this year is new member lectures. So these are kind of about each individual system and what they do. But when it comes to manufacturing, there is manufacturing training. You don't have to come in with any experience. And like I said earlier, you do tend to learn quick.
So yeah, just to add on to that, yeah, so we do things like lectures for different systems, machine training, things like that. And then once we also do things like SolidWorks training, and in general, like sort of guidances as once you first start off. Once you find the system that you want to pursue, then usually the leads of those systems will start to give you projects and start teaching you the specific programs and the specific methods that they do on their system. So you'll definitely get a lot of hands-on experience, especially during manufacturing season where a lot of work has to get done. So another question from Purple Gorilla 99, good name by the way. How much of the knowledge do you gain from Gator Motorsports carrying over to be able to work on street cars? I guess it would depend on the system that you joined. Like for example, I'm working on a project car. I have an old classic car, and I'll say being on the Aerodynamics team, that specific knowledge hasn't really transferred all too well into trying to get an engine starting again. But I guess if you were on the engine team, that yeah, I think it would help out a lot. But in general, I guess it depends on what system you join, and yeah. I don't know, like Michael, Mitchell, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I personally, I had no automotive knowledge just coming into Gator Motorsports. So I was really interested to see how much I would learn about working on street cars from my knowledge in Gator Motorsports. But I'm working on the ergonomic system, and just like Randy said, I haven't learned a ton that transfers over, but I've definitely learned some stuff about just, working on general mechanical stuff. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, so in terms of powertrain, I would imagine that a lot of the knowledge that we gain is pretty important when working on street cars. I'm not entirely sure what exactly you would want to work on, but if it has anything to do with the engine or making modifications to the powertrain system, then you would probably learn a lot when it comes to that.
Okay, so we have a good question from our very own Isaiah Hendricks. He worked on the Aero system. He was last year's president. Really cool guy. And his question is, what is the most valuable thing you have learned on the team? So I'll go first. I think probably the most valuable thing I've learned has really been like regards to teamwork, regards to time management, regards to sort of bettering myself on a personal level and becoming a better engineer because of the team. So just being able to learn more about myself and get, growing as a person through this team. So I definitely think the most valuable thing is just the team members and being able to grow as an individual and as an engineer.
Yeah, I agree with what Randy said about the whole time management thing. That definitely GMS helps a lot with kind of forcing you to be able to manage your time better. And also, I would say that pretty much the most valuable thing I learned on the team in terms of my career would be the engineering process. I think you get a lot of valuable knowledge from this team that you wouldn't get from just your regular course load. So, yeah, I think that's very important, and I don't think enough people get that knowledge during their regular engineering undergrad.
Yeah, so I agree with Randy and Mitchell. You do learn a lot about just what it is to be an engineer and engineering in general. It gives you an idea of what you're going to be doing for your career.
All right, cool. Another question, this time from Daniel Tremblay, this year's captain. How does competition work? So good question. I guess we didn't really talk about the competition process, but basically, once you design and manufacture your car, you'll bring it up to Michigan. We participate in FSAE Michigan. There are a few different divisions or different competitions that you could go to, like Lincoln and California, things like that. But we go to Michigan. It's the biggest premier FSAE competition. And so basically how it works is you can really split it up into two different sections. There is a static part of the event, and then there's a dynamic part of the event. And so for the first half of the event is the static events, where you'll go ahead and present to judges things like your business presentation that's developed by the business team, your cost report, basically defending the price of your car in a sort of Shark Tank style scenario of like, or not that, but just defending your cost and like, did you pay the right amount for things? Did you, manage your cost effectively? And then you have the presentation, the design presentation, where each your system will go up to a design judge who's had a lot of experience in that particular field, like in aerodynamics. You would have someone who's done CFD for 20 years or someone who's worked on lap sim for 15 years. And you go and present to them your design and defend your design up against these people. And then at the end of that, you'll get feedback from the judges, and you have that learning loop. For the dynamic parts of the events, it's split up into 4 different sections, where you have the Excel, the endurance, autocross, and skid pad events. So Excel is what it sounds like, basically how fast can your car accelerate. It's like a drag strip event. For skid pad, it's basically your car does figure eights, and it tests your handling and your cornering capabilities of the car. Autocross is like a small endurance where you have a lot of twists and turns, and it's just a small course where you can test out various aspects of the car. And then finally, you have endurance, which is a very, very long course. I think last year was about 22 kilometers, where you basically push your car to the limit and see how far it can go. A fun fact about the endurance is that usually only 50% of the cars that go to competition actually make it past endurance. So it's a very tough thing to achieve, but it's definitely cool to see your car pass the finish line and get that 50-50 split. Let's see, do you guys compete this year on the online competition? Yes, we did. That was a few days ago, actually. But yeah, we did compete in it. It was a lot of fun, I think. Obviously not as enjoyable as getting to see your car finished, bring it to the competition, and actually driving it around and seeing it, all your systems working on track. But we did definitely gain a lot of knowledge. It was good to be able to present it to a judge and have the judge comment on it and give you some good feedback, because at the end of the day, this is an engineering event and this is an educational event. So it's always nice to be able to present your design, the things that you've been working on for the past year, and be able to get some nice constructive feedback to implement into next year's car. So yeah, you guys have anything to add while we wait for another question?
No, I think you pretty much covered it for the online competition.
All right, cool. So yeah, we'll wait like a few more minutes to see if we can get like 1 or 2 more questions in. But if you guys have somewhere to be, thank you guys so much for joining us. It's definitely been fun. Expect to see more streams from us in the future. They won't all be like this. We're definitely trying to have a wide variety in terms of what we're actually streaming. So this time, the first time around, we did a presentation, went over some information, things like that. It's pretty cut and dry, but hopefully you guys learned a lot. But we're coming up with different ideas, from something as basic as like a online tutorial where we'll go through some program like SolidWorks and do some tutorials with you guys, or something as chill as just I really want to do an art stream where I do a lot of the artwork on the team. If you guys have seen the posts in the past few weeks, all the different artworks, I've been doing those, and I'm definitely working on more designs. So just doing something where we just lay back and I draw and we just do a Q&A session. We're trying to vary it to get the full experience of the team and just the overall general vibe that we can give. But yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think we'll call it here. This video is being recorded and will be posted onto our YouTube channel. So if you guys internet cut out, or you know somebody that wanted to watch it but wasn't able to see it, it'll be on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned throughout this week. We'll be posting more things on our social media. If you guys have any questions that you think of that you didn't ask it today, you always can reach out to us via our social media, or if you have more recruitment related questions, you can reach out to Mitchell and Michael at recruitment@gatormotorsports.com. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will be going dark. Thank you guys.